be absent.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So he did a good, he was ready for you? and
He's ready.
Screwing it, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and he wanted to be done by 4:30.
Partner, me,
and so
I'd be
did I.
yelling at him, get your butt, listen to him, whatever he said,
Yeah.
and do it. So we
Well,
did.
Text Cindy, just to see if
Cindy?
she's coming. I mean,
She
she
might
might have thought it
give
was
us a
6
shot.
instead of 5.
I'm not sure.
I'm just as a courtesy. I mean, I can.
You want me to text Jerry?
No, he's
Somebody text,
got
I got
a prior
I-
commitment.
Go ahead.
Oh, she's coming in now.
She's coming in.
Yep, right on time.
Should we go Cindy?
You just about got 3 texts.
We're just gonna have her text, gonna go, I just talked to her.
We just finalized
Have a
everything. We're all
business,
done.
and the clothes still fine, but I had customers.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
Let her get settled. Yes. Yep. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the invocation.
Father, as we deliberate the spending plan for the city for next year, we just thank you that we are in the position that we have money to spend and that we're able to use that money wisely for the taxpayers and for the benefit of our city. Please give us wisdom as we go through this process and help us to make good, sound decisions. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, thank you, Diane, and thank you all for coming tonight. Certainly a time-sensitive meeting with our deadline to respond next Monday. So I know Lynn and her staff in the clerk treasurer's office have worked hard to gather all the line one cuts that we will use tonight to reduce the spending and get our reserves to a point where we want them and hit our desired tax rate. And as I'd mentioned at the last meeting, and I know Jeff spoke to it, we had a little glitch on our notice to the taxpayers and then our actual ordinance that some of the fields didn't populate. And we will have to make those adjustments after the first of the year in the form of additional appropriations. So, but we've spoken with Jeff and be very confident that that's all it will take. We did get our tax rate, so it's just a matter of you all authorizing that spending, which we're doing right now. But there's nine of those funds that didn't get populated, so you'll literally you'll be authorizing those after the first of the year in the form of an additional appropriation. So I want to make sure you all understand that.
Just for the record, you're referring to Jeff Rowe from Baker Tilly,
Yes.
not Jeff Gross.
No, yeah, it would be yeah, there you go,
Jeff Rao, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, yeah.
So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. Again, kind of a transfer error from the digital world, and Lynn and her group dealt with it well, and we'll be fine. So, 1782 notice, basically we solicited line 2 cuts that went into the reserves, and tonight we will be asking for you to accept the spending cuts for next year's budget. The nomenclature has changed a bit. They're not called line 1 cuts anymore. They're called spending cuts from the current budget year. Is that correct, Lynn?
Or you can call them line 15 cuts. But not to get confused.
They're just spending cuts for next year's budget. How's that? I never liked line 1 and line 2 anyway. So what I'd ask you to do is jump down to, let's see, under new business in the response to the 1782 notice, go to the resolution and go to the second page, Exhibit A, and it will show you the amount, not on the 1782 notice, I'm sorry, the item B, the resolution itself. That's the 1782 notice. Okay.
Yeah, I know, I was just getting a.
All right.
next one.
So under the resolution, it basically shows there's $510,200 that are being cut in spending from the budget. And you can see the breakdown there, the amount from the general fund, Parks and Rec, Aviation, and Cemetery. And the majority of that came from us over budgeting our health insurance expenses. There were some other small items given, but the vast majority of that money came from the good fortune we had of a 6% decrease this year instead of a 12% increase that we had budgeted for. So that $510,200 will be subtracted. Let's go down to the next page, Exhibit B. And Lynn, you can see her first response to the 1782 notice is to apply all those reductions from Exhibit A, okay, and put those into the operating balances. Questions on that? Okay, and this is what we usually do every year to get our tax rate down, and we just take unnecessary spending that was proposed in the original budget. And then in line 2, we've also got, we're not going to be able to cut anything from the budget in the fire territory because we don't have a budget to cut because of that earlier problem. So that will be reflected next year when we do January, when we do our additional appropriation. But there were cuts that reduced the fire territory rate from 28 cents, 28.57 cents down to 26.06 cents. So we asked in the response to our notice, we asked for the tax rate to be decreased because of those spending cuts. Lynn, do you have the amount of the fire territory spending cut? Wait, I have it right here. $381,465. Okay. And looking at the need to cut, not wanting to be overspent by a large amount, I asked Chief to take 2 firefighters out of the equation. So he'd asked for four new firefighters and a CARES coordinator, and we left 2 new firefighters in and the CARES coordinator, but we took 2 firefighters out. And then there was also his health insurance cuts in there as well. So that's the $381,000. So his budget, at the end of the day, he'll be left with about a 26% reserve with his current spending with those reductions made. And that's a little more information than we actually need tonight, but I want you to know the impact of that reduction in spending. So his reserves, the fire territory operating fund reserves will be at about 26% with that reduced budget.
Do we set the same threshold for them not to go below 15% as
Yeah,
we do
they're all
everything
the
else?
same.
Okay.
And then I made a note with the spending cuts that we talked about, the $510,200, that added to the current reserves gives us a 20% reserve in our general fund. So we're well above that. Questions on that? I know I kind of covered a lot of ground, but again, that's the impact of the cuts on both the fire and the general fund. So the impact of all of that was that the overall tax rate will be $1.23.88 per $100 of assessed value. So that tax rate went up about 4 cents from last year. It really hasn't been any lower than that. You'd have to go back to 2014. Let's see, I had that. And all this information is in your comp plan. So our rate last year was 119.67. So it's just about 4 cents over the lowest. And again, that was with that broad expansion of assessed value that we had knocked us down to 118, which it hadn't been that low since 2014. And the 123, it hadn't been that low since actually 2015. 2015 it was $1.2291. So in 2016 it was $1.2391. So the $1.2388 is still less than what the taxes were back in 2016. So again, all the good work everyone has done. I think the utilization of our comprehensive financial plan has helped us leverage funds better, look for income sources besides taxpayer money, and obviously our expansion of our assessed value. So that's the crux of this. Now, if you want to go back and look at the 1782 notice, I think, Mike, I heard you say coming in tonight that he gave Lynn kudos for working through these numbers because this is a pretty complicated document. But if you get down to page, here it is. It's page 4 of 4, where it breaks down all the funds and it adds up. You'll see that our original 1782 with the budgets before the cuts were made, we were at $1.2639. So we're about 3 cents under. We reduced 3 cents off of the rate that came through the original 1782 a few days ago. And again, that was all based on our current budgets without any spending cuts. So the spending cuts, again, have put us down to $1.2388. So, that being said, I'll certainly take questions and we can have discussions. But what we're asked to do tonight is, in our response to the 1782 notice, is pass Resolution 2021-1107 that lists all the budget cuts for the Civil City, and then has the 3 responses to the 1782 that we just talked about.
So it's not this 126?
No, that's what that was the original.
Okay.
And it reduced down to 12388.
Okay. Is that in here somewhere and I'm missing it? There's so many numbers here.
That's on
It's in
Exhibit
the
B.
second one.
Exhibit B, Item 3. Not of the 1782 notice, but of the actual resolution.
On there, okay.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
And that difference is essentially coming from the fire territory
Okay.
and some of the other cuts that were made.
And that's not going to shortchange our fire territory or their readiness or preparedness or safety or anything?
I think they've got a pretty good budget this year. We just can't spend more than we take in, is what it boils down to.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't know what else to say other than, we're certainly trying to keep up with the expansion of the city and the need. I know when we added Assistant Chief Bollinger, we left a spot open on one of the shifts, and we really had to fill that. And then they had asked for another one per shift, and I think the addition of an extra firefighter is we all want more always.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
as
think
Jeff
this
learned
is-
this past week, it's important. We have firefighters.
Absolutely. And it's just, it's the reality of the budget that we can't spend more than we take in.
Yeah.
Lynn, do you have any comments?
The only thing you might have missed was that the other night when we had our line 2.
Spending cuts for 21?
Yeah, whatever they are, I think it's line 9. That will also go into the reserve, and like in the general fund, we had almost $1 million. So I think that operating balance is going to be higher than 20%.
So I figured the line 2s into the fire territory balance, the 26% reflects also their line 2 cuts. Lynn makes a good point. The 20% that I suggested for the general fund didn't include another, how much was it?
Well, in the general fund, it was almost $1 million.
It was almost $1 million. So that will raise that percentage of our reserves
Reserves,
up. So
okay. I
it'll
thought that
go up.
seemed like all of a sudden it went low, so that makes sense.
No, everybody will have a way over 15%, and it is,
Yeah, we certainly met the threshold you all established.
line fees are now line 5, so just in case everybody wants to know.
Current year spending cuts, I like that much better. It's
A lot easier.
It's a lot easier, and David understands what that means. Okay, good question. Thanks, Lynn. Anybody else?
I'll keep this short, even though it's a really big deal, and you guys have heard it before, but I've been around a long time, and over the past 5 years, I think we went 3 years in a row without a property tax increase. They've been minimal. That's due, as we know, we're blessed with a private sector. They're very creative, they're very industrious. Some of you are in here that are a part of that, and that's what drives this community. But then you take a look at the public sector. We have a department head here, and we have about 200 employees, department heads that they do their job. I was coming in tonight, and there was a street worker that was on Main Street still picking up leaves. And then I look at this board, and I'm so thankful because I know a lot of you work harder than I do at keeping an eye on the mayor, keeping an eye on the departments, and just learning. And mentioning the mayor, we are so fortunate. I know Joe doesn't like hearing this, but his very progressive leadership, I really believe has put us in this position for the past several years. So I want to thank you. I want to thank department heads. We got one here tonight, so Mike, you're representing all of them, and then the employees, and back to the mayor. So thank you very much. This is so encouraging. It's so encouraging to hear these numbers. Thanks. Thank you.
I think it's important to note, too, that in a world of government where balanced budgets are a rarity, we have a balanced budget and we have reserves to take care of any emergencies. And I think that's a tribute to everyone.
And again, it's always dangerous, but hello, Lynn. Good. So thanks.
All right, well, I appreciate all the comments, and I'm glad we're in a position to be a little bit gratified by what's happened, and certainly we want to continue to work. We've got lots of work to continue on. So with that, our action tonight would involve Resolution 2021-1107.
We need to pass that first before we pass the 1782 notice, I think,
You
don't we?
have to take any action.
It doesn't
This
matter.
is the response to the 1782 notice.
Okay.
Yep. That was just in there for your information.
Got it.
So Resolution 2021-1107 is the response to the notice.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2021-1107.
Motion by Diane, is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Jack. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Let the minutes reflect the Resolution 2021-1107 passed 6-0. Councilman Fresh being excused absence. All right. One item I do want to make you all aware of. Today, the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority awarded $1.1 million in rental housing tax credits to Real America, the project they're doing up on Argonne Road, the family affordable 60-unit, 2-building. They're the same group that did, I think it's Heron Preserve, a similar type of facility or residential complex, I should say. So that's big news. That's great news. I actually texted the lieutenant governor and thanked her because she's over ICDA, and she sent me a quick note, congratulatory note back. So this is a big deal. It's a really, really important thing. So
Our city continues to grow.
housing is number one, and I think we're looking at all different sectors of housing. And we've got a senior affordable housing down on Center Street getting ready to open up. We now have another affordable family housing project going, now officially going to happen. We're looking at housing, single-family housing in Gateway Grove. We're also looking at potential on the Owens property, rental housing for those that aren't ready to purchase single-family homes. All very, very necessary and important housing that was identified in the housing study 2-3 years ago. I'm very proud of the work our community has done in coming together to meet that housing need. And as a city, we serve as a catalyst, in grants like this and providing infrastructure, but bringing on collaborative partners that are willing to build these projects. It takes, I'm not going to say it, it takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of collaboration to put these projects together. So, and you'll hear more about that as we move into next year.
Not to mention a lot of hard work and time.
Again, Community and Economic Development Director Jeremy does a great job. Justin's doing a good job. I mean, our street department, they're all providing assistances and fixes to, as these projects go in. Our utility departments providing the lift stations and all the necessary connections. And again, it's this whole community needs the housing. We have a very strong demand for workforce housing, and I think you can all feel proud that we're meeting that need. So I did mention to a few of you, now that the budget work has passed, I'd like to pull a committee of 3 of you together to sit down and look at ARPA funds that have actually been appropriated for next year, but we have to decide on how we want to utilize those. We've got till the end of 2024 for those. So there's, got a couple, 3 years to spend them. There's no hurry, but I think there's things we need to talk about on how we want to use those funds. And we've, Lynn worked with Baker Tilly to see what flexibility we had in our revenue replacement, and we've got a lot of flexibility that way. So that'll feed into the discussion as well. So I'd like to do that. Maybe give us a couple weeks, and then let's sit down and get at that. So Jack, I'll ask you to put together three people off the council that we can sit down and meet with and start going through that.
That's kind of what Jeff Rao was talking about Monday night.
Yeah.
When he told us the amount that we'd lost that
Yes.
we could potentially recover.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret, it was, the amount of money we're getting from the feds for ARPA is 3.4, and about 3.1 of that we can use as replacement revenue, which means that there's not all those restrictions from the other 3 buckets of money. So that's a good thing. We can really guide that money to where we need to use it.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's replacement revenue, if it has to go back in the same funds that we identify the losses, or whether it just goes in and then we can allocate it.
It's already been allocated, if you look at your budget, but we just did that so that we had buckets, but we'll have to move money around as we
Right.
decide on a plan on how we're going to spend it. So
And that loss could go up with further calculations, because every year we're going to.
for this year,
That,
yeah.
so it could be the whole kick and caboodle before we're done, we don't know. Did I say that right, kick and caboodle?
Absolutely.
I understood it.
I know we've talked a little bit about redistricting. That's something that'll have to happen next year. That is your responsibility as legislators. I attended a very good seminar put on by actually the law firm that does our employment law. Put this on at Mayor's and Commissioners Caucus, and I've provided Jack with some information, and I've got information for all of you to look at on how that's done. And it has to be done right. But and you'll have the benefit of our GIS. I joked it's no different than changing our trash routes as far as the mechanics of it. Trying to put equal number of trash cans in 5 different districts, and that's really the focus of redistricting is to even out the number of voters in each district. So as far as the foundations to do that with the GIS and the programs that we've got now, it'll be easy to do. It's just, you all are going to have to weigh in and figure out how to do that. It is a very public process, and I would encourage that you will all have public meetings about that, to at least share the updates with the public. That's one of the requirements, and you see a lot of communities get in trouble because, well, you hear it all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, the redistricting, that's illegal, that's not fair. And the word we got was, everything's transparent. You know, you can sit down and propose something, but when you propose something, I think you propose it publicly, and then you have discussion about it. So
I think the school board was a good example
Yeah.
when they redistricted of how to handle that correctly.
Yep, and I think their redistricting is, how many school board districts are there? I think there's 7, isn't there?
There's 7 members.
Yeah, I don't know if they have at
Yeah,
large.
I don't know if they have at-large, I forget right now.
Yeah, but you're right, Diane, they did that. Now, the county has to go through that, and they have to be done by the end of this year for next year's election. You all will have till, I think it's after the fall election next year, I think it's November 8th. There is a date, and it has to be done by then. So, you know, that's work you all will have to do, and
So basically, within the next 12 months, it has to be done and finished.
has to be done. It has to, you'll have to bring it to the council and approve it.
Okay.
Can't file for office for the next term if we don't have a district to file in.
Does that, I know we'll get into it deeper, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, does that need, once we come up with something, is it this body that approves it, or does it have to go to someplace else to have a final stamp?
No. So what'll happen then is that it'll go over to the county, and the county will have to adjust their precincts to match the new council districts. That did not happen 10 years ago. And you're all familiar with your council districts. Some of them were in 3 different precincts
Yeah.
or wards. And
Jeff and I.
It's a nightmare.
and you know, that's, and I've spoken with the clerk, and she very much understood. She wants to get that cleaned up. But we know statutorily, she can do that within the city, but she has to have our council districts drawn up first. So, yeah. Once every 10 years.
This might be my 3rd one, and it's been interesting, the changes, because we've had difficult districts. 2 and 3 have been easier, but it's been Jerry's District 4, mine, and then also Diane. It's goofy, and I've seen, Joe and I went through one in 2001 or 2, right when we got elected.
Yeah.
Knopfinger and those guys, and then we went through another one, and I thought it was getting better. The way you could see it and understand it in neighborhoods. I would really like to try to be involved and help with that.
Well, the school has talked about
Yeah.
the growth is north, and that's
Yeah.
where.
And Diane's been wrapping around,
Yeah.
it's been really goofy, so.
Those districts will change.
I teach this stuff, I read about it at all levels of government, and it'll be fun. I'd really like to
I think the good thing about now is the technology
help.
is going to make it easy to do. I mean, you can just, I know Mary out at Utilities, she'll just take and move the line, and it'll show the total number. And she'll be able to move them and, you know, get them to where.
But we could help with neighborhoods, like there are neighborhoods, as you know, that it might be good to have the whole neighborhood in a district, so they can speak rather than.
Jeff and I have a couple, we're
rather
on
than
one side of the
splitting
street,
them
it's
up.
But there's
Sue's, on
two
the other side,
rules.
it's me.
Yeah,
2 rules, that all the districts be equal
Population.
as possible,
population,
and compact. Those are the 2 rules. As equal as possible and compact.
I'm
So
not
you can't do a wraparound.
right. And that's where I think we made gains 10 years ago. It does look better than what it did 20 years ago. And I'm hoping that we don't know, but I'm hoping it can even look better.
Well, if you look at our city map, you know, there's fingers on the periphery.
There are,
So
Yeah.
you're not going to have concise as you want, but you can keep them as compact as you can be.
The library too is ground zero. It's where all the districts come together, and so you can, it's just fun. Again, I always look at it, it's hanging up in my room, and again, it's stuff that I try to teach.
I would
the children.
encourage you, I think up in my office, I've got the map of the current districts hanging
Yeah.
up. I know you can find it.
Yeah, it's cool.
But it'd be fun to come up and just take a look at that. But, you know, again, it is, I didn't understand whose responsibility it was, because I was not mayor the last time we did it.
What we did.
And I thought
Council.
potentially that it was my responsibility then that you all voted on. I don't have any responsibility at all, other than to make sure you follow the proper process.
I think it was Jeff Knopfinger and then Jeremy. They took the lead as planners to sort of give us these proposals. And you may have forgotten the first one you were involved in too, but you're at large, so maybe you weren't as concerned as I would have been. As a district councilman, you're really watching it. And, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the exercise, and I just want it to be good for the city. And-
But I would
Yeah, the
encourage you to
last one was
have,
my first year on.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
okay.
so I did it once, yeah.
I'd encourage, once, you know, you get started, to have public workshops or presentations and update the public as you're moving along. I think,
I'm looking forward to
I
it.
don't see that will cause any concerns, but that was the message. If you do it all behind closed doors and then say, here it is,
No, we don't want to do that.
it's got to be, and obviously the first thing we have to do is gather the data from the census, which I know is available, to see what the populations are now in the current districts, and that's obviously going to tell the story. So, yeah, we have 2,254, I think, new residents from 10 years ago. So
And 1,000 of them live in my district.
probably, I would guess you're probably right.
Well, your district was growing. Mine is the one that ballooned, and that's
Yeah.
why it sort of did get a little bit, it'll be fun to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
But I love them all.
Yeah, well, it'll be, like Jeff said, it'll be very interesting, so. All right, well, thank you all for a special meeting tonight. Get home and have some dinner with your families, and we will meet again after the first of the year, or 1st of December. When's our next meeting, Lynn?
December 6th.
Just 6.
6th, okay. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you all.
It will be-
Thank you, Mayor.
They are, that's where I'm worried. You guys were looking really good, you two, 3 and 2. It was the 3 of us above. It was Jerry, Jeff,